a month ago, I was here, and this tank was looking absolutely awesome. And there was a little bit of this advanced algae just there. That was about a month ago. Then 2 weeks ago I came, and this algae had completely overrun everything. Now, I did make a video a month ago saying, hey, look, this stuff here, you got to be careful with it because it tends to boom or bust. So I do remember that warning. But what had happened with this is it went absolutely bananas. Like, it just grew over everything. And now here we are 2 weeks later again, and it really hasn't gone nuts again. So there's still way too much in there, but it's very funny how come this particular weed was under control for a period of time. Then it went completely bananas for a couple of weeks, and now it's trimmed back and it's not so bad again. These sorts of variables are actually very interesting and very hard to explain. But moving forward from now, the aim really needs to be strip it out. So strip it out to basically none, if possible. So even if that means just a little bit a day comes out, we really want that gone. Now, the other thing that we can do too is we can introduce some stuff to reduce phosphate and nitrate. Because the main thing this stuff is going to want to consume is phosphate and nitrate. So if we add some algon and we get this nitrate and phosphate down, then hopefully we'll be in a position to help starve this stuff off. Because if it doesn't have a food source, or if we limit its food source, we should limit its growth. Then if we can strip its food source, we should actually get to the point where where it stops growing. So for a reef aquarium, when you do your top-ups, you really want to use RO water, reverse osmosis water, in your top-ups. Because the reverse osmosis water is basically pure water. So therefore, you're not getting any impurities in the water. Now, if you don't have RO water available and you are desperate, then the option is to put water ager in tap water. Now, tap water is very bad for a reef tank. You're introducing chlorine, chloramone, and all of the other nasties that are in tap water. But if you use RO water, then you know exactly what you're getting. You're basically getting pure H2O. Now, if you don't have RO and you have no other option, then the other option is just use water ager. And the water ager means that you're not getting the chlorine and chloramones because the sodium thiosulfate in the water ager will have addressed that. But you're still getting all of the other crap that's in the water. You're still getting the silicates. You're still getting everything else that's undesirable in the water. So we need to look at water ager as your absolute and total last resort. Definitely not as a go-to. Your tank will never ever run as well if you're not using RO water, reverse osmosis water. Okay, so the salt level is 1.023, so I'm pretty happy with that. When there's no fish going in, I do tend to want to raise that a little bit.
So what's the salt level again?
1.023.
So
Yeah, so if we're not adding fish at all, I tend to want the salinity a little bit higher than that, but I'm not worried about that at all. If we're getting fish in, I definitely want it lower than that. Okay, so in this aquarium at the moment, the alkalinity is 7.2, which I'm very happy with. The pH is 8.2, which I am happy with, but I'd rather it be 8.4, but I am happy with it. Increasing the pH slightly and the KH slightly may slightly disencourage the algae, but I am happy with these levels. The phosphate is 0.3. The other thing about phosphate is phosphate isn't a really clear test because there's so many different forms of phosphate and some of them don't show up on the test. So stripping out phosphate is absolutely a way of reducing algae. Calcium is 510. It's a little bit on the high side. I'm happy with that, but sort of 450 is better. Then magnesium is 1255, which I'm happy with. Ammonia is 0.1, which is, as far as this test is concerned, is sort of nearly nothing. Nitrate is 0 and nitrate's 22. So the two main things I want to be working on right now is just bringing the phosphate and nitrate down, because the phosphate and nitrate is what's feeding the algae, and I would like to see the algae go away. I also want you to be quite conscious of what products you've got, because very often there are products that you might have that might benefit the tank, but for some reason you're not actually using it. So because there is a bit of nutrient in this tank and this algae is enjoying this nutrient, then I think dosing a live bacteria product or a bacteria stimulant at this point is probably quite a good idea. So if we added 5 mils of this once a week, keeping it in the fridge, and that might be a nice little benefit, because trying to encourage the good bacteria is going to compete with the algae. Circumstance, a tool like this is really ideal, because what we want to do is just basically strand by strand. Hopefully I'll get myself a nice big strand. But what we're wanting to do, oh, you can't even see it, is we're really wanting to pull the algae out. So we want to go like that, not drop it like I just did then. This bloody clownfish keeps biting me. So we want it out, because the more of that we remove, let's video this clownfish. Has she got a name?
No.
She's an angry bitch, isn't she?
Yeah, she's a bossy one.
Yeah, she bites me all. So we want to go like that, get it out. So the more of this we pull out, the better. And then what this also does is means that the nutrients that the algae is feeding on is removed from the tank. So if you have a little bit more patience than me, and then you start physically dropping it out. Well, I'm not demonstrating this very well, am I? There we go, that's what I wanted to do. So just get it like that. Slowly start removing it. And a fine net's good too for like scooping out any bits that you've dislodged. But if we could go and remove a lot of this algae, not only is that a benefit because we're removing the algae, it's also a benefit because we're removing the nutrients that the algae feeds on. So away we go. Now, one thing that's super cool is this tank's got a little sensor light that is just such a simple, great idea. So I would really recommend copying this idea. You just stick it onto the inside of your cabinet, and it just gives you a bit of light. Now, the way the skimmer's running, I really want that froth level much higher, and I want the inside of that skimmer cleaned at least every sort of 3 days, because as it gets dirty, it stops working. Now, also there is these filter sock, so I want this cleaned on a semi-regular basis.
Yeah, well, if you do the sock, I'll do the skin.
Yeah, it's actually not that bad. All good.
Why this algae was running like crazy, and then last time I was here, and now this time, it's not got anywhere near as bad. And now I've just worked it out. Is that in the bottom of the filter sock, I put some phosphate remover. So what's actually happened is originally the phosphate was high, and the algae went absolutely bananas. Then when I was here, I added some phosphate remover, and now the phosphate remover has managed to bring the phosphate down. So there's still phosphate, so the algae's still growing, but it's not growing bananas anymore because the level of phosphate has drastically reduced. So basically I want to keep reducing the phosphate. Now this is a great product here, but it does need to be recharged. So there is a recharge product. It's a Blue Planet product, and it will recharge this and give you another run out of it. So I don't want you to throw this out, but I do need to try recharging it.
Get this algae down, we're going to try starving off the algae, which has already been relatively effective because we had high phosphate, then we had the algae go bananas, and then we added some phosphate remover, Phosphate RX I think it's called, or the Blue Planet product, to the sock. And then the phosphate has come down considerably, but there is still phosphate, and now the algae has no longer gone stupid, but it is still there. So what we're going to do is try some Algon. Algon helps to remove nitrate and phosphate. Now these are little pouches. Now, I like to use too much, but I don't like being silly about it, because there was a circumstance when I did use way too much nitrate or phosphate removing product, and it did seem to strip the oxygen out of the water. So that's something that scares me a little bit. So I wouldn't go chucking the whole lot in, but 2 pouches is about right for this tank. So if we put in, say, 3 or 4 pouches, I'd be pretty confident with that. And we leave them there for a couple of weeks, 3 weeks maximum, and you'll see them bloat up because they suck out the phosphate, and then chuck them out and get another 3 pouches and put them in. Because I want to systematically strip down the nitrate and phosphate until it's very low, but not 0. We do not want a phosphate level of 0. We just want to have it nice and low so we can starve off the algae, but not have it so low it starves off the coral. Occasionally I do get comments about how corals have gone up in price, particularly in the last couple of years. And one of the reasons why that is tighter regulation, for better and also for worse. In the old days, what they used to do is go out and collect the coral, and all of the coral would be weighed, and then what they'd have to do is ring into the fisheries and tell them, hey, this is how many tons we've got, and then they'd have to be prepared for a spot check when they get back to dock, and then the fisheries may or may not check the weight, and decipher if the collector's done the right thing, providing that they're collecting within the zones that they're allowed to collect in. Then some time ago, they changed it from a total weight to via genus. And that drastically increased the price of the collection. So instead of them going out and collecting corals and bringing the corals back and weighing them to get a total figure, now they're having to be able to identify each genus, group each genus, and report each genus. Now that requires a lot more expertise and it requires a lot more time, which means that your coral increases its price. Now in the last couple of years, the other thing that's happened is instead of just weighing them for total and then weighing them per genus, now they're making you report on them via species. So each genus may have multiple species. So the complexity of reporting into the fisheries before you dock is now massively involved compared to what it once was. Now, does that actually yield any benefit? I probably doubt it. But it does give them more information of what's going on. In the old days, I believe they got the same information anyway because they just review your invoices. Because you would review them all and classify them all to sell them. But is there actually any benefit for doing that at the collection, like literally on the boat as you're bringing them in? I doubt it. But anyway, so that's a major reason why corals have got more expensive. And the other thing is that they've been cutting the quotas and cutting the number of licenses. So less people are able to collect and the people are able to collect less. So it's getting far more complicated and far more costly, which all results in you paying more for your coral.